Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is May 16th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. So what are we going to discuss today has to deal with the 2020 presidential campaign and the war machine, which has been a theme we have been discussing here on the Capital News for the past few days because there have been more mumblings, saber-rattling taking place in regards to Iran, the Persian Gulf, and still the story remains true with our meddling in Venezuela. But first, let's get to some headline news. China warns the United States that our move against Huawei could hurt trade talks. So Huawei, I'm sure many of you are aware, is a Chinese telecom company, technology firm, a rival basically to the likes of Apple. The United States is alleging that Huawei is placing a back door for the Chinese government to spy on virtually anybody who has the products, but obviously the United States is most concerned with anybody who might be living within the United States who has these types of products, and so the United States is attempting to prevent these products from being allowed within the United States. Obviously, this is something that China denies. They are not using Huawei as a backdoor, a spying mechanism, if you will, and they are now saying that this could hurt trade talks. Well, this is no surprise. Now, whether or not this is true, I mean, who knows the truth? Somebody obviously knows the truth. I know if you look out at there on the internet at some of the blogs and some people who are tech experts or quote-unquote experts out there, they're saying that this is not true in regards to what Huawei is allegedly doing. So according to these experts who are in the know with this stuff, they are saying that the allegations that the United States is asserting against Huawei and the Chinese are not true. Remains to be seen, is this a negotiation token that the Trump administration is using in these trade negotiations? Is this something more personal? Is this something more strategic? Or is it the truth? We don't know, we won't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Chinese respond in kind. Because if they were to do something with Apple products in China, boy, would that send this market into a downward tizzy, wouldn't it? Walmart says higher China tariffs will increase prices for U.S. shoppers. Oh, wow. Walmart said that? You got to be kidding me. That's very interesting because we've been told for quite a while that U.S. shoppers are not paying the tariffs. It's actually China. They're taking out their pocketbook and writing a check to Uncle Sam. That's what the president tells us on a near daily basis. But now Walmart's saying no. The Chinese tariffs will increase prices for U.S. shoppers. That's very interesting. Now, of course, Walmart doesn't work for the president. Larry Kudlow does. We still don't know where Larry Kudlow is. Again, we hope he is not swimming or floating in the Potomac. We like Larry. But, he spoke the truth, and the president may have hushed him, at least for a little bit. But Walmart's out there saying the truth, that we can expect to see the U.S. shopper paying higher prices at a store that values itself on low prices. Isn't that interesting, folks? Now, the other interesting side of this story is Walmart just actually the other day released their earnings, and they beat expectations. They were a strong report for the first quarter. Now, that moved the markets up today. This puts the president in an interesting position, doesn't it? Because the president loves to tout the stock market making new highs. Well, you have Walmart coming out and telling the truth, that the U.S. shopper is going to pay a higher price due to these tariffs. But at the same time, because they had a strong first quarter, it propelled the stock market up today. So what's the president to do? Well, he kept his mouth shut. He didn't ridicule Walmart, at least not that I saw today. And he was just going to stick with the fact that the market went up, and he shut his mouth. So we'll see what happens with that one. But just an interesting observation, I believe. Saudi Arabia accuses Iran of ordering drone attack on oil pipeline. We'll have a further discussion on that. No surprise, by the way. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio becomes the 24th Democrat lunatic. I'm sorry, I added lunatic. My apologies. Democrat to seek the White House. So we got Big Bird entering the race. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants him. Basically is decimating New York City single-handedly. But yeah, let's make him the president of the United States. Good luck, Mr. Mayor Bill de Blasio. Britain's Theresa May to agree to departure after latest Brexit deal. Well, we discussed this, didn't we? There's been growing calls for Theresa May to resign amid three failures of her deal. We are going to see the fourth attempt in a few weeks during the first week of June. From what we know, it's supposed to be June 5th. We'll see if it gets shot down. We do know, at least from sources out in the media, that if it does fail for the fourth time, she will pretty much resign immediately. Otherwise, she will set out some sort of timetable for her resignation to allow for another member of her Conservative Party to serve as the Prime Minister. This is causing, obviously, some panic and some headache, but we'll see what comes of this saga that continues. The European Union fines Barclays, Citi, J.P. Morgan, MUFG, and RBS $1.2 billion for FX, that's foreign reserves, that's the foreign exchange market, rigging, FX rigging. $1.2 billion for foreign exchange rigging. Anybody going to jail? Not that I'm aware of. Is it likely that anybody's going to go to jail over this? Probably not. If I was a betting man, I would say no. Who gets to pay for it? The chairman, the board, the CEOs, the CFOs, the executive suite? No, the shareholders get to flip the bill. $1.2 billion. What a world we live in. Commit a crime, other people get to pay for it, nobody goes to jail, and all these fat cats will continue to make big salaries and big bonuses. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. So those are the headlines for today. But getting back to Iran and what's going on there, we have a headline here. Trump says he hopes U.S. not going to war with Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday he hoped the United States was not heading to war with Iran as he met with Switzerland President Uli Maurer, whose nation has served as a diplomatic conduit between the two countries. Asked by reporters if Washington was going to war with Tehran, Trump responded, "Hope not." Tensions have escalated in recent days with increasing concerns about a potential U.S.-Iran conflict. Earlier this week, the United States pulled some diplomatic staff from its embassy in Baghdad following weekend attacks on 4 oil tankers in the Gulf. Switzerland, a neutral country, has historically been a liaison between United States and Iran, which have no diplomatic relations. A White House statement said the two leaders discussed, quote, a range of international issues, including the crises in the Middle East and in Venezuela. And that leads us to today's discussion in regards to the 2020 campaign, and in particular, candidate Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. She gave a recent interview on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I know I had mentioned this podcast before. Joe Rogan is a comedian. He is a host of UFC, MMA fighting, just an actor. I'm sure you've seen him on television shows, etc. He has one of the most popular, if not the most popular, podcasts out there, and I highly recommend it. He has a long-form podcast, which simply means he has guests on there, and they just have conversations. Most of them are at least 2 hours long, some of them a lot longer than that, but they are very interesting. They cover everything under the sun. If you're an open-minded person, and everybody should be an open-minded person, I think you should check him out. It just covers everything. Science, space, technology, economics, politics, spirituality, archaeology. He covers it all. And earlier this week, he had, again, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. And the reason I'm bringing her up is because, obviously, we are in the midst of the 2020 presidential campaign. We are being told by the mainstream media that crazy, sleepy, creepy Joe Biden is basically running away with it, that crazy Bernie can't keep up, Pocahontas lost her horse, Spartacus is still lost in the woods, Kamala Harris doesn't have a chance, and everybody else down the list doesn't have a chance. Well, currently, Tulsi Gabbard, I think she's polling at 1 or 2%, so if her poll numbers remain where they are, I don't know if she'll even make it on the debate stage, although I don't know what the rules and regulations are. I think there might be 2 separate sets of debates until this thing sort of, they weed themselves out a little bit. But nevertheless, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard is not really a mainstream figure, at least not right now. However, despite my use of the word lunatic, and of course I use this playfully, but nevertheless in some regards when it comes to the frontrunners of Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, I think they're, in a large part, they are lunatics. There is some insanity there, especially with some of them. You look into their eyes, there's just nothing behind the wheel there. You know what I'm talking about? Particularly with Pocahontas and Spartacus, there's just, they got that crazy look in their eye. I've seen it enough times in my lifetime to know that that's a problem. Nevertheless, our focus here is on Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard because, again, despite the fact that I use the word lunatic playfully, I'm really not associating Tulsi Gabbard with this, especially after her interview with Joe Rogan. Now, while I am not fascinated or impressed with her policies in regards to economics and finance and overall size of government and some social issues, I am in agreement with her when it comes to her vision and her take on some foreign policy issues and with this war machine and this growth of the American empire. Because, like me, she is tired of it. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, is a 16-year member of the National Guard, and I believe she is still a member of the National Guard while she concurrently serves as a United States Congresswoman from the state of Hawaii. So we, salute her for her service and thank her for her service. She is a very well-spoken individual. I take her as very thoughtful and very passionate about serving her country. I don't look at her as I look at some of these other candidates as being somebody who is power-hungry. Now, I don't know her very well compared to some of these other frontrunners, but just in her language, she's at least doing a better job as coming off as somebody who is not power-hungry, really seems to have some true, honest convictions about this being about serving her country. Now, I know that's obviously the line that a lot of them give, but in the background, it's just about power. There's something else going on. Now, of course, again, I am no expert on Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, but this is just my first impression of her, and I have to applaud her on this interview when it comes to her statements regarding how much money we spend on our national defense, how much money we spend on war, how much money we spend on basically killing other people around the world in the name of American exceptionalism, which I have a big problem with, and so does she. And she has front row knowledge of this, serving in the National Guard, serving overseas. And quite frankly, she's sick and tired of what she is witnessing, just like I am sick and tired of what we are witnessing with all of the meddling that we continue to do, that we continue to witness in regards to Venezuela, now in regards to Iran. Mr. President, are we going to war with Iran? Hope not. Well, I hope not too, Mr. President, because I don't think you're going to be sending Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka and Tiffany over there to the front lines to defend this country, are you? I don't think John Bolton, our national security advisor, is going to be sending his children to the front lines. I don't think he's going to be strapping himself to any mother of all bombs if and when we go over there and meddle and start attacking Iran or some other country in the Middle East, is he? So there are some major concerns right now, some rumors of war, which is never a good thing. This is a serious conversation. We have to get off of these Russian allegation charges. We have to get off of this obstruction of justice crap. We need to solve structural issues. We need to have a national conversation, a true national discussion about should the United States be the policeman of the world? Do we have an American empire? Should we have an American empire? And if we do, can we afford it? Or does money not matter in this instance? Very interesting questions, aren't they? Something to seriously consider, something that we do not seriously consider. We would rather talk about build that wall. Mexico's going to pay for it, and obstruction of justice and witch hunts with Trump, Russia, collusion, and conspiracy. That's where our attention span goes. We can't talk about anything structural. We can't talk about anything that is truly serious here. I think war tops the list when it comes to seriousness. I've never served in war. I don't want to serve in war. I thank our veterans out there and anybody who is serving in uniform. But I don't think they want to go either. I think they are willing to go. But I don't think they want to go, nor should they want to go. That has to be a living hell. Especially when you look at the men and women who come home suffering from injuries, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, the amount of suicide that exists within veterans who are coming home from these wars is devastating. It has to make your heart break. What does the government do? Well, we're going to go back over there. We're going to meddle in Venezuela until we get our guy in there. Now we're going to see what happens over there in Iran. We're going to send an air carrier over there, strike force in the Persian Gulf. We're going to game plan. We're going to see if we can send, maybe, if we have to, 120,000 U.S. troops to the area to deter any type of Iranian aggression. And now you have the Saudi Arabians, who are buddies with the President of the United States, and probably also with John Bolton, and probably also with our Secretary of State Pompeo, saying, well, I think it was the Iranians who were messing with those oil tankers and probably also with the pipelines. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, isn't it? Well, I hope not, Mr. President, too. I hope we don't go to war either. This has to do, I think, more so with Secretary of State Pompeo and most definitely with National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's a neoconservative. He was a member of the Bush administration who got us into the quagmires of Iraq and Afghanistan. We're still there, by the way, if you haven't noticed. So this president told us we're getting out of Afghanistan. We're still there. Told us we were going to be leaving Syria, all set to do so, and then boom, somebody got to him. Somebody said something, and we're still there. Now we're in Venezuela. Now we're in Iran. This is no coincidence either, by the way, folks, because John Bolton was there during the Bush administration. I told you, look at a map. Where's Iran? It is right in the middle between Iraq and Afghanistan. You think that's by coincidence? You also think it's coincidence that John Bolton has been talking about going to war with Iran for years and also meddling in Venezuela? And lo and behold, that's where we are. We're talking about going to war with Iran, and we're meddling in Venezuela. Quite the coincidence, isn't it? We don't believe in coincidence here. I don't know what this guy is doing in this administration, but he needs to go. He seriously needs to go. I don't think that the president wants to go to war. I believe this. I don't think the president wants to go, nor should he. But nevertheless, you never know what's going to happen, because we thought we were going to be leaving some other areas, but we have not. We also thought there was going to be some more draining of the swamp, but there has not been. So we will see what happens. Again, a statement that the president likes to use all the time. We will see, but it's an honest statement, and it's a true statement, and it's something that I personally use quite a bit myself because I don't have a crystal ball, and time will tell. So we will see what happens. But getting back to Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, and again, I suggest everybody checking out Joe Rogan's podcast in regards to this interview and a whole host of other things. But Tulsi Gabbard also mentioned what we mentioned here yesterday, and that was in regards to President Eisenhower and his farewell address, which, by the way, is a quote that we placed in our book, The Cynic's Guide to Investing, because we talk about the war machine, the military-industrial complex. I mean, the title of the chapter is War. What is it good for? We'll tell you. And so we placed this part of President Eisenhower's speech in our book. So again, just allow me to read this to you. And this was something that Joe Rogan and Tulsi Gabbard mentioned as well. Quote, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." This comes from a former president of the United States, his farewell address to the nation. He could have said, thanks, it was a pleasure being your president. It was a pleasure serving the armed forces for my career, yada, yada, yada. Nope. He said, look out, folks. There's somebody lurking in the shadows. They are power hungry. They have power. They have money. It exists. It will persist. Anybody paying attention to this? Not too many people. So I have to applaud Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for at least mentioning this and starting to open people's eyes and ears, I hope, to this matter. Because she doesn't want to go to war. She wants to have discussions. I hope the president wants to have discussions. I believe he does. I mean, again, kudos to President Trump and his administration for reaching out to Kim Jong-un of North Korea and continuing conversations. I want to applaud the president for meeting Vladimir Putin. Of course, I think he would have met Vladimir Putin probably many more times over these past 2.5 years. But of course, he was under investigation of being accused of being Vladimir Putin's puppet. So it wouldn't have looked too good for him to keep going over there, would it? So he's been hamstrung for 2.5 years from making better deals, peace policy, whatever it is, to avoid war and any type of arms escalation. He's been hamstrung by the Democrat Party because they think he was a puppet of Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin. Unbelievable. That was a true disservice, and it remains a true disservice for what they're doing. So give Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard some credit for coming out there, saying enough is enough, asking some serious questions, asking if we should have an American empire, asking if we can afford to be the policeman of the world. I do not believe that we should be the policeman of the world, because you also have to look at where we get involved, because it's not just people who are suffering. There are people who are suffering all over the world. There are people within the United States of America who are suffering. We only go into these quote-unquote poor countries if they happen to be rich with some sort of natural resource, primarily oil, natural gas. But hey, if they got diamonds or gold mines or silver mines or copper or lithium or nickel or any types of these commodities, precious metals, rare earth metals, anything like this, we got to get involved. It has nothing to do with the people. That's just the front. Oh, it's American exceptionalism. We have to be the moral and ethical titans of the universe. By the way, we're going to bomb innocent people. They're going to get killed, and we're just going to call them collateral damage. But don't worry about a thing, because everything will be fine. They will greet us and welcome us as liberators, and they will just allow us to take all of their natural minerals and resources without a hitch. Of course, that is the biggest lie, one of the biggest lies ever told, and the American people unfortunately swallowed it whole. Unbelievable. Hook, line, and sinker. And that goes back to the Iraq War. Weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein is aiding and abetting Al-Qaeda. They're buddies. We have to worry about those weapons of mass destruction being transferred to Al-Qaeda, because who knows what's going to happen. Of course, that was all a lie. We will be greeted as liberators. They're going to love us. They're going to adopt democracy. No problem. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was a lie. Why people out here believe the government is beyond me. And then how people believe that the government is the answer is really beyond me. That's one of the main reasons I call most of the members, especially the frontrunners of the 2020 Democrat Party contenders, lunatics. Because they honestly believe that they are pretty much somebody's chosen child to be the president of the United States, which means the government should get even bigger because they know what they're talking about. They have no clue what they're talking about. But I tell you who does when it comes to some foreign policy, some common sense, and calling the military-industrial complex to task, and that's Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. So give her a chance. I think if she can get up on the stage, she will impress some people, because she is polished, she is well-spoken, and she is thoughtful. So don't say I'm a right-wing nut. Some of you who may be listening once in a while, I am a libertarian. I am down the middle. If I agree with you, I say I agree with you. If I disagree, I say I disagree. You can love me, hate me for that. You can agree with me, disagree with me. That's what this channel is all about. That's what we're about here. Debate, open conversation, open discussion. Hopefully I have the ability to change your mind. I know for certain you have the ability to change my mind, because I'm an open-minded person. But if I believe in something, it's because I've done my homework, it's done my research, I've put a lot of thought into it. So come prepared if you're going to change my mind. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you. As always, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. Leave your comments. We would love to hear from you. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.